trying something new. I'm excited, a little bit scared. So a couple of months ago, Darcy and I, let's emphasize more so Darcy, made the bench seat that I'm sitting on. I've got a reel on my Instagram that has like the process of how it was all made. So if you want to know how to make the actual base, you can go to that. I'll link that below. But today I am doing the zhuzhing up and final styling of it by customizing some cushions to go over the bench seat as well as this little bolster. It's currently all here. I've done like a little mock-up of just wrapping it around to see if I like the colors. Hopefully it comes to life well. So the cool thing about this bench is it's just like all enclosed. It has hidden storage within it. And then we just went to Clark Rubber. I keep saying Rubber Clark. But we went to Clark Rubber, got the foam to the measurements of the seat. I'd like to say that I did something more sustainable than just getting a polyester one, but unfortunately that was all I could find around here. So if you have any suggestions of alternative things to get for foam, I don't know, it'd be cool if there was like a plant-based one that's available to general public. Got the base cushion, and then I really wanted like this little bolster finish so you can like lean back, have a bit of cushioning behind you. And for the material, I've got a corduroy. It is actually an upholstery material, so it's nice and thick. I think will be good for the base cushion to be nice and sturdy to sit on. And then for the back piece, it is just like a thrifted wool blanket. I think it has a few imperfections, so I always grabbed it with the intention to turn it into something. I've been putting this off for so long. Let's get it done. What do you know, my sewing stuff is just conveniently located below the seat. Measurements have been acquired. I sketched out the actual dimensions of the bits of foam. Then I have calculated below the added seam allowance what I will be cutting the size of each piece to be. Now personally, I want it to be quite a like snug fit of a pillow, and I don't want the pillow to be loose so then it ends up being like all bunched up and not looking nice and clean. If I add 1 centimeter of seam allowance altogether, that means I should try and sew at about 0.5 centimeter off the raw edges. And if I do happen to go a little bit more than that, it's not that big of a deal because it will end up making it nice and snug. To slip the foam in and out of the pillowcases that I'm making, I'm going to close it up using Velcro. Just again, I have so much laying around and I want to utilize that rather than having to go buy specific zips that are like the certain lengths of the pieces. So I'm going to have one long Velcro going down the back of the bottom piece. I'm going to cut out 2 of those back pieces, so they're the like thin but long pieces, and by the time I fold over the seam allowance and add the Velcro in, they should overlap enough. Oh, my brain is not working today. Anyway, once I start to do it, hopefully it makes sense. Then for the cylinder pieces, I'll probably do the same thing, just at the back of the bolster, make the main piece that wraps around it. Today, I'm just saying in centimeters. The Velcro is about 3 centimeters wide. So 47 is like the final size that I want it to be. So by adding 3 centimeters, that will create a 3 centimeter overlap of the fabric, which is where the Velcro will be added, and that's where it will sit together. And then I still need to add seam allowance, as I'm going to at least be doing 1 fold. So I'll do 1 centimeter per fold if there's 2 edges, and that's 2 centimeters. So all up, I should be adding 5 centimeters to allow for seam allowance and overlap. Now this depends on like if you're using a different thickness Velcro. My cutting length will be 61, so that's the length plus centimeter, and then 47 plus 5 is 52, and that's all times 2 because I've got 2 bolsters. Terribly sorry if that ramble as I was figuring out the measurements and seam allowance didn't make sense, so here's a quick roundup of what I ended up cutting out. For the base cushion cover, I cut out a panel for the top and the bottom with 1 centimeter of seam allowance added to the total measurements. So technically as I sew on the edge, I'll aim to be about 0.5 centimeter off the raw edges for the best fit. Then I cut out 2 small side edges and 3 long side edges, all with the same seam allowance calculation. The extra piece for the long side edges will be utilized to create an overlap effect once the Velcro is added in, and that is so the foam can get in and out. I've just cut these extra panels to the full size for now, and then can trim it down to the proper height once the Velcro is added in and the sections are overlapped. Then for the bolsters, I cut one large piece where the width is the measurement of the circumference, and this can be found by wrapping the soft measuring tape around the cylinder or by timesing the diameter by 3.14. Welcome back, good old school maths making a return there. And then to find the final cutting width, I then added 2 centimeters of seam allowance plus the width of the Velcro for the overlap. And for me, that ended up being about 5 centimeters all up. And then the length of this panel just equals the length of the bolster plus 1 centimeter seam allowance. So that's all the measurements for the one main panel. And then lastly, each bolster needs 2 circle ends, which I just found easiest to trace onto a template piece of paper, plus the 1 centimeter of seam allowance. So for the 2 bolsters, that meant I had 4 circles and 2 main panels cut out and ready to assemble. Hopefully that makes a little bit more sense now. But also sometimes it's handy just seeing the in-between phases of how I calculate stuff, especially when I am in a bit of a frazzled state of mind, because we're all just humans trying to just be creative, make time for cute projects. I'm definitely not perfect. All I need to do now is just cut the Velcro down to size as well. Quite large rolls. I don't even know what we bought this for, but we've got so much. It's also very wide as well, so I'm going to trim it probably like in half. That means I officially have everything to start joining it together. I think first up I'm going to focus on adding the Velcro, just because once that's added, then I can just start joining up the side seams. And I feel like it'll be done. Why does it always seem so much simpler in my head? The 2 edges that wrap around and meet and that will eventually join up together, I have zigzag stitched, or if you have an overlocker handy, obviously you can use that, and then do one single fold of about 1/2 centimeter, and that way it'll just make the edge nice and clean and ready to add the Velcro onto. The cool thing about this Velcro is it is adhesive, so I can kind of lay it in place, stick it down, and now I'm up to the point where I can add the sewing lines, and that'll be the final securing moment of it all. I did have a mini heart attack moment before because I went to kind of like practice wrap and it didn't overlap, and I was like, excuse me, where did my calculations go wrong? I think I just hadn't stretched it enough, so it easily, as you can see, overlaps. I've laid down the like soft Velcro piece on, I guess, the good side of one of the edges, and then the more like harsh Velcro piece on the underside, so then when it overlaps they sit on top of each other. And because when that is overlapped I will see this top edge, I have prioritized using a thread that looks good on this material, so I will end up seeing the sewing lines on the Velcro, but personally I would prefer to have it looking good on the outside. I haven't sewn through this before, so hopefully it works out. I feel like the softer edge will be easy. I really try and not be a negative thinker, but I just really jinxed myself before. I had so much time to sew this afternoon and my machine just had an absolute meltdown, and I think it was when I was sewing the Velcro onto the fabric, my machine kept picking up the stickiness, I guess, of the adhesive backing. So you know how I said that was such a good thing? I feel like that ended up actually ruining most of my afternoon of sewing. It's staying in place with the adhesive fit. I might just have to end up hand stitching a few pieces or coming up with another solution, because the debacle that happened was not ideal. But anyway, I got my machine back working. So to close up these cylinder pieces, I ended up overlapping the Velcro section as it would normally sit to complete that cylinder section, and then I just pinned the circles onto the ends with the good sides facing. So to do that, I turned the cylinder inside out, and then I face the good side of the circle to the good side of these end edges. And with circular pieces, you find you kind of have to like keep rejigging it as you go, as it just moves around. It is a curving edge. So I pinned that on both ends and then just jumped on the sewing machine and just sewed around there. And that will help secure the overlapping edge of each end of the Velcro sections. This is my revealing situation. Hopefully I can un-velcro it. Actually, I feel like it might even be good to pop it in here. So have it inside out still and then flip the good sides onto this piece. That's my thought process anyway. Oh my. Okay, something actually successfully working. What? You haven't finished yet. Don't get too excited. I can just see it ripping when I try and finish this. Lucky it's like spongy and I can just bend it. Ah, I can bend it. Excuse me. I've made basic pillows, but I've never is this called upholstering if I'm just covering a pillowcase? Not really. Kind of. That's also the good thing about Velcro is you can kind of pull it and change where it sits, whereas a zipper, it's just always going to be the same. That's the same. Who's here? Look at that, I literally just put it on. Look how cute it is. So now that I know that this works, I can repeat it for the second one. And then I can move on. Rasco, shush. All I can hear is tap dancing. Hello, cuties.
Do you approve of it?
Do you like it? Okay. See you tomorrow. Today is done. Are you serious? Did you just headbutt that? So the next day I started assembling the base cushion by sewing 3 of the panels together. That meant laying down one of the long side panels with the good side facing up and one of the small panels good side facing down and aligned to one of the side edges, and then I just repeated this for the second small panel down the other end. I just jumped on the sewing machine and sewed one line down either of these side edges, and then when I folded out those 2 small pieces, this just created one large extra long section. And then this last edge before I join it to that little concoction, this is the piece that I'm going to be adding the Velcro onto. During my initial calculations, I ended up just cutting 2 pieces of exactly the same size. I feel like that would just be easier. I'm going to zigzag stitch the raw edges of either of these that will meet in the middle, that will overlap. That's just one of the long edges, and then do one fold over to create a hem, and then I will stick the Velcro onto here. I'm not even going to attempt to sew it today because I just cannot handle my machine breaking and then spending half a day getting that to work again. So stick it in place. Eventually down the line I will hand stitch a few sections of the Velcro so that it stays in place, and that can be future Maddie's problem. So then once I clean these edges, put the Velcro in place of here, I'll figure out how much it overlaps. And the good thing about this, by having a little bit of extra width on this, if need be, I can trim off any extra width so that when they are overlapped and Velcroed in place, it equals the width of the other panels. The Velcro has been added, I've overlapped it. It actually sticks perfectly onto here, so we love that. As I mentioned before, when I overlapped it, I then just laid one of the other edges that I'll be matching it up to get it to the same width. So when I join it, they're all nice and matched up. It was handy just having that bit of extra width on each one, just in case. You'd always rather have a little bit too much that you can trim back rather than not enough. So that all worked out. I'm going to be finishing the outing edges. So this edge, which is the short edge, which will be a corner there and a corner over here, I'm going to lay that good sides facing down to the good side of that edge, and then I'll just sew one line across there. This material is very thick, so I'm gonna have to be very careful going over the 2 overlapping edges, which also have hems and the Velcro pieces, so that's going to be scary. So I'll do that line, and then I'll do the same over this end. Make sure this isn't twisted. Oh my god, imagine if I did that. Lay that good sides facing. Obviously at any of these steps that I show you, you can add pins or do whatever you need to hold it in place. I find sometimes it's just so much easier to just get stuck into it personally if they are just a small piece. Rightio, I'm just going to sew down those, and then we join the top and bottom. And now I have this one beautiful long strip. I'm going to join it to the top piece, I guess in a similar way that I joined the circle, but this time it is a square, no, it is a rectangle. I think what I'm going to do is lay the rectangle flat on the table with the good sides facing up, and then I'll start matching the corners of this piece with the good sides facing down. That will help me indicate if it's going to fit all nicely. I'm not going to have to change anything. If I do, I can always unpick edges, take this in, take it out. That will be done for one piece, and then I'll repeat that for the other piece, and then it will be done. And then I'll do the same process that I did for the cylinder, where I will keep this inside out, unvelcro it, and begin like transferring it onto the cushion. I repeated the process of laying one of the bottom or top pieces good sides facing up, and then these side edges good sides facing down. Obviously the second time round I have that other piece attached to all the edges, so it becomes very bulky. This whole process has just made me appreciate upholsterers so much more. I mean, I already did. Or if you get a quote back for something, you're like, why does that cost so much? It is a lot. I can't even talk. My brain is not good because of this project. Look, eventually as well I can come back and zigzag stitch or overlock these other edges, but we just need to get it finished. Okay, I'm gonna match up this edge, push it over this edge, shins a bit tight, that's for sure, and that's what I wanted. Oh gosh, that just flapping around is not the vibe. Oh, I've been velcroed. Point out the edges. Where are we? Come on, let's just all get along and cooperate. Oh, that just unlocked so much pressure. She fits like a glove. Are you ready?
When you come around, the world stops turning. When you're feeling down, oh, I'm also hurting. You said I'm sentimental, guess